Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm going to talk to you about some recent things that I've read and some recent things that I've received. So let's get straight into the books that I've read recently. So the first book I want to talk about is The Accidental Life of Jessie Jefferson by Paige Toon. This is one of my picks for the Chick Lit-a-thon. It's a book by an author who is quite prolific that I haven't read anything by yet. And I was doing this as a buddy read with the lovely Lisa from Books and Smiles, although it ended up being quite a short buddy read because I read this in one sitting, in one evening. I was just in the mood for it. It's under 300 pages long and it was just very easy reading. So the main premise of the story is that Jessie's mother has died and she's living with her stepfather, who they've been living with since she was 8 and she is now 15. She's in the UK, she's never known who her real father is, her mother never told her and pretty much refused to tell her, and Jessie is really struggling to cope with the grief of her mother, coping with just her stepfather to look after her. He's nice, but she is going off the rails. She's going out smoking and drinking and not listening to him at all. In the end, he reveals to her who her real father is, and it turns out that he is a rock star, sort of a quite famous rock star in fact, and he lives in LA, and various circumstances happen and Jessie goes to stay with him and his new family for a while, and that's really where this sort of story kicks off. We're finding out about Jessie and her life and how she's feeling over the death of her mother, her relationship with her stepfather, her relationship that she tries to form with her real father and his family. One thing I really liked about this is I really liked the UK part of it. The setting felt very familiar. It reminded me of when I was younger, me and my friends meeting at the park and messing about in the park a lot and being silly in the park. And yeah, I liked that feel of it. It's very unusual for me to read many books set in the UK, and so recently I've been lucky and I've read quite a few YA books which are UK based, and I've really enjoyed that. It's just nice to recognise parts of your youth in a book. So as I say, I did read this in one sitting and I did really enjoy it. However, I did feel like it didn't come at me with anything groundbreaking or anything new. The storyline was fairly predictable, and I did feel like we moved through these stages that she was going through very quickly. She very quickly sort of felt like she'd settled in to her new life, or into this life of meeting her father. I felt like there wasn't much tension there, and that sort of moved relatively quickly. So that part I struggled with a little bit. I felt like I would have liked to have seen more of this bonding relationship with her real father and how that went, and also I would have liked to have seen more with her and her stepfather. I did feel like she was quite hard on him and I didn't really understand why. I felt we needed a little bit more backstory than there was. However, saying all that, as I say, it was a fast read, it was a fun read. I'm definitely going to carry on with this because I am intrigued to see where this goes. It does sort of end, not unsatisfactorily, but it ends ready for the next part in this, I think it's a trilogy, so I'm going to be moving on with this, but I gave it 3 stars. So it's a good light read, but not necessarily one I would be forcing on people, but because I had it and I read it, I really enjoyed it. So the next book I want to talk to you about is The Incredible Adventures of Cinnamon Girl by Melissa Keel. Now initially I went into this, it was one of the books I picked because it had girl in for the Buzzword readathon, and I initially picked it because I thought it might have something to do with superheroes. I actually thought it might have that sort of feel to it, because the blurb tells you that it's about a girl, she lives in a small town, and then on the radio or on a YouTube video someone predicts that the new year is going to be the end of the world, and that the only place that's going to be safe from this apocalypse is this tiny town called Eden Valley where she lives. And so there was this talk of like superheroes that she was into, and I had this feeling that maybe there was sort of a superhero element. I was completely wrong, and that is okay, but this is actually a YA contemporary story and I really loved it. So when I realised that it was a contemporary story, I then thought this is going to be the tale of a small town, there's going to be a romance, and that's what we're going to get. But actually the majority of this book is less about romance and more about friendships and how life changes when you finish school, how daunting that can be, how scary it can be to be moving away from everything you've ever known, and how when your plans change, that can be unnerving and possibly something that you want to run away from and not to. So our main character Alba in this story has a really tight-knit group of friends. They've just finished year 12. It's set in Australia. They're about to go off to college or various places. Alba doesn't really know what she wants to do. She's had plans and now she feels slightly resistant to them, and when this sort of YouTube video is made saying about this apocalyptic event and people, hippies and people coming to the town that want to just get drunk and live out the end of the world, you know, like it's the end, start descending on this small town, things start to change, tensions arise as this sort of apocalyptic event occurs, which sort of coincides with when all of these sort of changes are going to happen in Alba's life. We just start to learn more and more about her friends, about her friendships, and about her best friend, who is someone that she has relied on and spent so much time with over the years. This book was surprising for me because it sounds like a lot happens, but actually not a lot happens. It's much more of a character study and a look at these people and their lives and their mentality and what they're looking for in the future, and I really enjoyed it for that. And often I need a bit more plot. In this case I didn't. It worked. It was a real joy to read, and it's definitely an author that I will be keeping my eye on in the future, so I strongly recommend this one, and I gave it 4 stars. The next book I picked up was again for the Chick Lit-a-thon, and that was Letters to the Lost by Bridget Kemmerer. I picked this up for the book with pink on the front cover, and also because Lisa from Books and Smiles has recommended it and loved it. This was a little bit of a slow burner for me. It wasn't until maybe 100 pages in that I really got hooked and couldn't put the book down. This book looks quite heavily at judging people by the initial appearance and initially how you find them, and not taking that time to find out what's going on beneath and finding out more about their personality and giving people chances and second chances, and I really enjoyed it for that. Juliet has lost her mother to a car accident. Her mother was a famous photojournalist and was always off an assignment, and her mother corresponded majority of the time via letter because that's how her mother liked it, and she also has a passion for photography, but since her mother's died she hasn't been able to pick up a camera. She's lost her way, she's struggling with her grief, and so she's writing letters to her mother and placing them at her graveside. And then we have our male protagonist in this, Declan, who is doing community service at the local cemetery, and one of the things he does is he mows the lawn. And through that mowing, they are told they have to collect up everything off of the gravestones so that they don't clog up the mower if they mow over them, etc. And he sees this letter, he reads it, and he leaves a comment at the end, which then starts a correspondence between these two characters. And they don't know who each other are, and they keep it that way. And we're following these two very different lives with very different things going on in them, and seeing how they intertwine and how they can help each other get through things from their past. This book did play on the trope a little bit of one person knowing more than the other and lying about it, and you're expecting, you know, there's going to come the time where this person finds out and that's going to be the big reveal, and then there's going to be this sort of dilemma and how they're going to get past it, and it did play on that a little bit. However, there was quite a lot more to it than that, and so I forgave it for that. I didn't mind. I ended up really enjoying it. I don't think I loved it quite as much as Lisa, but it's a definite strong 4 stars, and definitely one that I would recommend people reading if they enjoy a YA contemporary with some romance, but also looking at some heavier topics like grief and alcoholism. And the final book I want to talk to you about is Words in Deep Blue by Cath Crawley. I picked this up on a bit of a whim off my shelf, but I also felt like maybe it would fit into the category of the Chick Lit-a-thon of a more serious chick lit. This book deals again with grief, and it's slightly more serious. Our main character Rachel has lost her brother. He has gone out swimming one day from their home and has drowned, and she really isn't coping well. Her and her mother are struggling with this, and she has gone back to the town that she grew up in, where she had a best friend for a number of years called Henry, who she was more than slightly in love with. Henry and his family own a second-hand bookshop, and in this second-hand bookshop there is a section called a letters library where they have books that you can't buy, but people go in and they leave letters in there for people, and people correspond to each other through these letters, through circling things in the book, through writing things in the margin. You can stay and read those books and leave notes in there. And Henry and Rachel have grown up. She has left previously to move away before her brother's death, and during that time when she did leave, she left a note proclaiming her love for him, which Henry did not receive. So she has spent the whole time when she's been away, I think it's 3 years, thinking that Henry doesn't care, he's got a girlfriend who she doesn't like. She's now come back after her brother's death because she needs a change and she needs to get a job, so she goes to live with her Aunt Rose for a bit, and cue her best friends coming back together, meeting each other again, her and Henry seeing each other again. And it's a real it ticks all the boxes for me. I mean, it's got this literary presence in there. We're seeing these letters going between different people. We've got a dual perspective. We see Henry and Rachel's perspective. We've got some really interesting topics being looked at, you know, people's futures and grief, and what to do if financially you have to make tough decisions, and what books mean to people. And I just really enjoyed this. I read it in sort of 2 sittings really. It was a bit of a gobble up book. I just thought this book was beautifully written, and I really enjoyed a lot of aspects of it. I just wish we kind of know what's going to happen. It felt very formulaic in a way. It was quite clear what was going to happen, and there was some quite big hints in there which I wish had been sort of kept perhaps a little bit more in the dark, especially this side story of Henry's sister George, who is having a correspondence through one of the books with someone she doesn't know, and it's kind of obvious who that person is from the get-go, and whether that was the author's intention or not, I don't know, but I felt like I would have rather that had been kept slightly more of a mystery and us kept in the dark a little bit more. I think it would have made it a slightly stronger read for me. But I still enjoyed it. I loved the writing style, as I said, so I gave this one a strong 4 stars as well, and would definitely recommend it. So that is some of the books that I have read recently, and now I just want to mention 2 books that I have received. One was through a book box, and the other one was sent to me very kindly by the publisher. So firstly, let's talk about the one from the publisher, and this is Suicide Club by Rachel Heng. I really enjoyed the front cover of this one. I think it looks really cool. This one is coming out on the 10th of July. It's set in a near future where immortality is going to become a possibility, and I think from the sense I get on the blurb, you have to be a certain type of person to be able, it'll only be the fortunate few who are going to be able to have this immortality. Our main character does something, she makes a small mistake. She's been in the running for this sort of immortality. She makes this small mistake which leads to her being under ministry surveillance, and also draws the attention of this sort of splinter cell group who are into all the things that you shouldn't be doing: sex, drugs, rock and roll, death. And I just think it sounds really interesting and really exciting, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. So thank you so much to them for sending me this. And then the book I got from the book box, I also want to show you the bits that came with it, because I just think they're really cute. The first one is a really, really pretty bookmark. There you go. So that is a really cute bookmark, and I'm really excited about that. There was also a pouch which says, "To the stars who listen and the dreams that are answered." And I just think that's really cute, and will hold like makeup and stuff when I go away. They also sent some socks which have constellations on, which I think are really cute, and they're really stretchy, which I love. And so the book is one that I hadn't heard of before. It is The Queens of Innis Lear by Tessa Gratton. This is a humongous hardback, and it's really beautiful, and I just think it looks gorgeous. I didn't know anything about this, I've never heard of it before, but the blurb says, "Battle-hungry Gala, master manipulator Reagan, restrained star-blessed Elia, the queens of Innis Lear. Their prophecy-obsessed father, the king, has drained Innis Lear of its wild magic, leaving behind a trail of barren crops and despondent subjects. Enemy nations circle the once bountiful isle, sensing its growing vulnerability, hungry to control the ideal port for the trade routes. The king's 3 daughters know that the only chance for resurrecting the realm lies in crowning a new sovereign, proving that a strong hand can reawaken magic and defend their lands, but their father will not choose an heir until the longest night of the year, when prophecies align and a poison ritual can be enacted. Refusing to leave their future in the hands of blind faith, the daughters of Innis Lear prepare for war, but regardless of who wins the crown, the shores of Innis Lear will weep in the blood of a house divided. Dun dun dun! I just think that sounds really interesting, so I'm excited about this one. So there we go, some books that I've read and some books that I've received. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you've liked them like I did. Have you read any of these 2 that I have received for review, or the one that I received for review and the one that I got in my book box, and what you thought of them? And let's chat as always in the comments down below. Bye for now, BookTube.